Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Non-Essential Workers Podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Aiden.
And I'm Jason.
And this week we are going to be tossing over to Jason to start us off with the news section.
What you got for us, buddy?
All right, I got some bangers that I've been saving up. I've been loading them in the cannon for a couple days. Okay, so my favorite one that we're going to start with is this. From the Associated Press, who typically don't fuck around like this. Proud Boys leader who burned BLM flag gets 5 months in jail.
Huh. Yeah, that's unusual.
And here's what this scumbag looks like.
Oh, it's this guy, yeah.
I recognize him.
I think he actually shows up in the Borat sequel when he like goes undercover to find out the COVID conspiracy psychos. I think that guy's actually there.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
All right, so what do you guys think?
Well, first, I just want to quickly describe for the listeners. So he's wearing like a tack vest. He has a cap on that says "The War Boys." He's smoking a cigarette. He's got aviators, and right almost out of the frame, he's also holding a White Claw, which I think
He's got a White Claw in a magazine pouch on his bulletproof vest.
is a very apt metaphor for what Proud
He's
Boys
got a bunch of bracelets.
It should also be mentioned he looks like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. That should also be mentioned.
Yeah, he's obviously white, but he's been outside so much protesting and at rallies that he no longer resembles what he thinks he's protecting.
I'm not even sure he's white, but that's a whole other question.
Whatever. He's Hispanic, but it's complicated. The point is, why do you think I chose this article, especially the way it's phrased, the headline?
Well, I mean, the most obvious thing that jumps out to me is that they're framing it in a way that sounds like the flag burning was the cause of the jail, which is almost certainly not the case. It's almost certainly that he got
Exactly.
jail time for a completely unrelated crime, and it's framing it this way to make it seem as though.
Well, not unrelated. As it turns out, he's getting the 5 months not for just burning a BLM flag, but because he stole the BLM flag off of a historically black church and brought 2 loaded assault rifles with him when he did this.
So it's an armed burglary.
So it's for theft and destruction
Yeah.
of property. Yeah. Not for just exercising, because this is what the article, this is the thing that blows my mind. Associated Press is supposed to be like, we don't have opinions. We just print words. But this is framing it as if like his constitutional rights are being violated. And today's so woke you can't even burn a BLM flag, but you can burn the American flag and no one shits bricks. It's like, turns out you can't steal other people's property while armed.
This is what the left wants. They don't want liberty-loving Americans to be able to walk into anyone's home or private property with a bazooka and 8 revolvers strapped on a bandolier around their waist, and
like you're Neo,
yeah,
like you're in the lobby scene,
and take your microwave. That's the future leftists want, and it's terrifying if you ask me.
and destroy your microwave in protest.
Yeah.
Does this guy think he's like Nelson Mandela going to prison for like he's basically like lighting a dog turd on fire and burning it outside someone's house, and he's like, I'm proud, I've done it, eat shit, liberal. Like, this is so pathetic as crimes go. Like, this is what their leader of their movement is doing.
And you know what the reality is? In the courtroom, he's like, I'm sorry, I fucked up, I profusely made a serious mistake.
Oh my god.
Because he is what everyone thinks he is, a giant pussy. This is like the, I don't know, like the Proud Boys are especially ironic, but basically all modern day conservatives wish they were tough, but they know that they've been party to creating a world in which nobody is tough. Like, we're all weak, sniveling idiots. So them trying to project their toughness is entirely a facade, and most of them are not even convinced that it's real. So when you see them in court, like all the people who got arrested for January 6th, they all get in court and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. I have my IQ is 75. Please don't throw me in jail. They're all such sniveling losers. When any actual exercise of power comes out or is necessary, when there's any consequences, they immediately shrivel up and go, fetal position, and it's amazing.
Yeah, they immediately do. I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't do that. Like they do that sketch.
Yeah, it's because however much they shout about the encroaching wave of leftism, they very well know that every authority in the United States, and especially the police, who are most often directly involved with these kind of displays, are entirely on their side. And so when they're in a relatively, we hope, impartial court, it's like the first time they have to face the fact that when their behavior is actually examined in any kind of semblance of fairness, it's absolute bullshit. And they cannot handle that.
Well, they like cosplaying as if they're activists who have to face police brutality because it's fun and it makes them feel big and like manly. But the reality is, because the police are on their side, the whole thing's a farce.
Yeah.
Like exactly as you said.
Well, exactly. That's the other funny thing, is that when any protester, no matter what, they need to be protesting against some form of power. Otherwise, they just look like psycho white supremacists in charge. So the left wing obviously has a lot of power structures that they can protest against. It's pretty easy to protest against the police. They are the violent state authority that hurts people. But for the right wing, it's like, who am I punching up at? And so for them, it's not the police who actually do most of the on the ground level damage. It's the state. The state as this abstract apparatus. They're fighting against the deep state. They're fighting against the court system. They're fighting against Washington. Like, their fights are so abstract compared to what real people face who are suffering. And I just find it funny that in the courtroom where he's supposed to be like, here's my fucking treaty of I'm a sovereign citizen thing, he just immediately folds. Just drops his hand. He's got like the two. All they're projecting of we fight the power as well is a total paper tiger.
Yeah, it just becomes
total house of cards.
It was just a prank, bro, immediately.
Yeah, it's always fun when people who have basically no real problems try to like compete in the oppression Olympics and be like, I'm persecuted because I did a crime against people who are actually persecuted and the police were helping me. It's really sad. Like, I almost want them to like spend a month being really persecuted so that they can have some sort of perspective. Because I feel like half of these people are just like, they want to be political radicals, but they don't really have a good cause. They want to feel like they're important. Their life doesn't really have any meaning. It's just like, I have grievances. I got problems. I don't know.
Yeah, often, and I don't know about often.
But instead of using that to unite and align with other people with similar interests, they use that to say, I have grievances, but they're not yours. They're the opposite. So fuck you for your grievances, but why are you not accepting of my grievances?
Right, because they feel that something is wrong, that they are being wronged in some way, but before they can possibly even work it out for themselves, they're just pointed like a loaded gun by the media or by their community or whatever influences them. Yeah, at the first thing that they're told is the reason for their problems, even if it's completely disconnected, which is usually, people of color or, leftists or liberals, whatever.
Well, speaking of being right, you know who else is right? Mitt Romney, apparently. This is from The Hill. Mitt Romney was right. Too many Americans are dependent on government. Thought?
Oh, so he's an anarchist now? That's progressive.
Well, at least he's recognizing that the tyranny of state violence is unacceptable. And that, really, at the end of the day, we're all beholden to coercive power, not because there's any sort of justice in the state.
Yeah, obviously, this is almost certainly about unemployment benefits or something of that sort. About how that
it's even more obscure.
Really,
and it makes him look like even more of a hypocrite. Yeah.
Why
was he pilloried in 2012, and not just for the binders full of women?
Because he's like the fakest man on earth. Because he was like manufactured in like an ooze tube to be the most bland, uninteresting, unoffensive Republican possible.
Okay, why were the wonks upset with shitting on him in 2012?
I mean, a lot of people were talking about him being Mormon. I don't know if that's the thing you mean.
All right, this is too obscure. When he was running, he had some comment about like 47% of Americans pay no income tax, and that's
Right.
bullshit. And now, because of COVID, so many people lost a lot of income that way even fewer people are now paying income tax, and he's upset about it.
Wait, so he's a pro-tax Republican? What the fuck is he talking about? I thought their whole thing is they don't like taxes. Isn't that good?
If you're the correct person, Alex, you don't have to pay taxes.
So
but if you're poor, you don't get to tell the government, "Hey, I'm sorry, I lost my job because COVID and I'm poor. I can't pay taxes this year."
okay, so his problem is with unemployment. It's just the fact that it has been classified as distinct from income, and so yeah, it doesn't have to be taxed. That yeah, great job, Mitt Romney.
It's even more nonsensical and makes him look like even more of a asshole.
It's such a weird almost like it's a weird sadistic technocrat take on things that still is completely misguided from any kind of actual fact towards what would I really wonder. I mean, because this is the thing. Even when let's say that people with extremely high income should be taxed more consistently. We all have read about how the IRS can't handle people who make tons of money. It's too complicated. They can throw up too many legal blocks and such. Even if that's legitimate, they always even when they just grasp at an idea that has the seeds of being that could be applied well, they just their sense of inherent sadism, like the fact that people, especially lower class people, cannot get away with anything in their eyes because they are always trying to get away with things. No, they're not struggling. They're not just trying to make enough money, get enough money in their pocket so they can literally live. No, it's because they're hoarding all of this ratty cash away and underneath their mattresses, slowly building a fortune that is dragging American capitalism down the drain, or so they seem to like to pretend.
I mean, it's a de facto caste system. Rich people or people who are aspiring to be rich, who are the correct kind of person, are seen as grinding and they're rugged and they're working hard and they're doing it. Whereas people who don't deserve money, according to these people, are criminals. They're doing it illegally. They're doing it unfair. They're skirting around the laws. They're breaking rules, but not in a cool way. And so it's just, are you allowed to or not? Are you the correct person or not? And according to Mitt Romney, the correct people were not paying taxes in 2012, and the incorrect people are not paying taxes in 2020.
It's once again, it's a Republican way of thinking that, I mean, Mitt Romney is just kind of generic Republican man number 32, but this entire premise starts from, let's let a right-wing assertion, version of government, which already fails people, and a totally unchecked version of capitalism, which by definition is supposed to fail people. Let that grind everyone down. Let them have less and less. Let them become more and more impoverished. Let them become more and more desperate. And then when they become dependent on social services to whatever degree they even exist, because of that impoverishment, then you get angry at the government for keeping them alive. It's well,
yeah, it's a catch-22.
If you actually gave a shit about keeping people off of government entitlements, then you wouldn't endorse systems that immiserate people and force them onto entitlements. They wouldn't need them if the system was not totally brutalizing them and exploiting them in the very beginning. It's it would be like the COVID equivalent would have been there's too many people dependent on ventilators. It's well, yeah, that's true, but they're only there because you didn't get them vaccinated or tell them to wear masks or make them treat the thing seriously. When you push an insane right-wing ideology that destroys humanity, you can't then complain there's too many people lying around in makeshift camps to protect the survivors. No, stop destroying humanity. Then you don't need to do anything like that. It's an absurd denial of their own culpability in creating these conditions.
My favorite thing about this, though, is I don't think Mitt Romney actually came out and said anything in particular, new. It's just, this is well understood about the Republican ideology. But is that Mitt Romney got so much love during COVID and during the election, because Mitt Romney's yes, COVID exists, and yes, Biden won the election. And people were just fawning over him. Now, this is a true Republican. He's standing up to Trump. Look at them. They're inching away. But this is the same people who, as Alex just said, have designed systems to immiserate you. And these are the people that, from a high end, are getting praised by all the elites in Washington. Oh, look, he's standing up to Big Orange Man. These same people who are, look, he's being honest, are just as evil. just as evil.
And the things they love, which is basically just giving huge tax breaks and benefits to huge corporations, are the chief contributors to the very thing he's criticizing. Like Walmart and McDonald's are huge companies that employ huge numbers of people, and their employees are way disproportionately beneficiaries of Medicaid and food stamps. Right? Like, because they've created these people working for starvation wages, which almost by definition means that they need to get food stamps. They create people who don't have reliable health insurance because they keep them in precarity and in these not quite enough to get employer health care, so they have to go on Medicaid. By creating a totally unstable system of capital in which everyone is totally crushed if they're not in like the upper tiny, quartile or whatever it is of earners, then of course these systems become dependent on these systems. Because if they weren't on these systems, then they would just die.
Yeah, but Alex, speaking of our next article, if the government's not going to step in to solve people's problems, who will?
Jeff Bezos?
From CBS News. Haiti earthquake death toll rises as gang leader offers to help relief efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The earthquake that recently hit Haiti is so bad. The Bloods and the Haitian Bloods and Crips are getting together to help everyone.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
I mean, obviously, the suggestion of the headline is that things are bad there and that gang members or gang leaders helping out the people is bad because it's a nefarious scheme to get them hooked on drugs or to get young children into their gangs, which I'm sure it is to some extent, is an attempt to build the power of whatever gang is offering this. But also, what's the suggestion? It's the kind of thing that like condemns a reality without any suggestion of what else Haitian people should be relying upon. Like they've been struck by a natural disaster, first, which is something that I think the media can't even attempt to blame them for. Unlike if it were, I don't know, rampant fires or some kind of pollution, anything that they could blame the people of Haiti for.
But this is part of the game, Aiden. Because why does Haiti get hit with natural disasters? Because that's what Haiti deserves. That just is the way the universe is. Haitians get hit by natural disasters. People in Florida get hit by earthquakes. People in the Gulf of Mexico get hit by storms. My point is, this is the conservative worldview. Things don't happen. Things can't be fixed by human means. Things just happen, and because they happened, they were right to happen. This happens to Haiti. That's the way it is.
I hate to say it, but the phrasing of this article strongly supports your bizarre assertion, Jason, because it says Haiti earthquake death toll rises as gang leader offers help to relief efforts. In other words, it's phrased as if the gang leader offering to help relief efforts caused the earthquake.
That's obviously not made in the article, but I do. Yeah, it's very poorly phrased.
But that's the That's the grammar. The grammar.
It's really just saying these are happening at the same time.
It should say gang leader offers to help relief efforts as Haiti earthquake death toll rise.
Yeah, they Yoda'd it up.
The fact that they Yoda'd it actually makes it sound like he caused the earthquake.
Also, you're a badass when your gang is called the G9 Revolutionary Forces, which is apparently the name of the gang that's helping out.
Or maybe they're like a radical political movement and not a gang.
Maybe
do
we know? Maybe Arnold's just calling them a gang.
Maybe it's like a communist guerrilla movement. It's like we don't fucking know. Do you think the average person, reporting on this is going to make that distinction? If it's hostile to American interests, it's a gang. They don't give a fuck.
I just think it's funny that when your state fails, just rely on your cholo down the street.
I mean, what is a state? If a state is barely functional and it's basically just a military and a corrupt bureaucracy on top of that, that's just a gang. It's just a big, powerful gang. Gang is not a well-defined word, right? Gang is just kind of a pejorative, like saying terrorist or
group of young men who are armed who we don't like.
Yeah, almost all states are just extremely huge, successful gangs in a very basic sense. If you want to use gang,
I would define the police as gangs.
Certainly, and often very strong overlap between them. But to say gang as a pejorative without any investigation of that in this title is once again, as we've been talking about, a way of saying man, Haiti sure sucks, instead of just saying Haiti's being brutalized by the environment
and the economy, the world
and should really be assisted as best we can by whoever's able to assist them.
Yeah, why don't they just turn to their president, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Oops.
he got ganked.
Yeah. I mean,
All right.
Haiti. Yeah, let's move on. There's a lot of stuff to say about Haiti, but we could do like an hour.
Speaking
to that,
of
so.
people hating their politicians, this from
Yeah. I saw that.
the Washington Examiner. Kamala Harris has unprecedented negative rating.
She's achieved something no one else has.
Yeah, she continues to break new ground.
Now, we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, talking about how like her responses to being asked a question about Afghanistan are putrid, whereas Biden's are hilarious. But I mean, Kamala Harris is like hitting, Super Saiyan levels of unlikable, and I'm here for it.
Do you think that's why he chose her? Like, do you think he wanted someone who would be insurance so that he wouldn't be killed or be like let die?
So we're gonna keep him on like life support. So
yeah, like
he
he's
can't
gonna
become
get
president?
he's gonna get like the extra adrenochrome like super infusion blood gift to keep him going because otherwise we're stuck with Harris.
Yeah, but see, I kind of understand that logic. It's the same logic as the Chappelle Show bit,
Right.
where Black Chappelle is running for president, but his running mate is like a Hispanic guy, and so his appeal to America is, well, you better not assassinate me, because if you assassinate me, the Hispanic guy will take over, and you'll even hate that more.
And he goes, he's just gonna open the border up as if that's what all his
But
guys
to
want.
me, and this has always been my pet peeve. I think in both 2016 and 2020, the Democratic Party should have offered an olive branch to the left wing of the Democratic Party and just said, Bernie, we'll let you be VP under both Hillary and under Biden.
Right,
but
of course.
Because they're such cynical scumbag assholes who are vindictive monsters, they're like, no, we have to destroy you. But I think it would have been so much more interesting from like a political game theory dynamic if Bernie was generally the VP. Because then it would be, don't let Biden die, otherwise the socialist takes over and things.
Of course, that's why they didn't do it, because they know Biden might die. But that's why they couldn't.
Then what's the play of having super unlikable Kamala as the VP?
Because it's not about whether she's likable; it's about whether she's a reactionary piece of shit that they can use for their ends.
Yeah, whether she's safe politically.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But then all this unlikability stuff is just ether. It's just smoke up people's asses.
Yeah, but it's always been.
But it's fun to talk about.
I mean, I'm kind of glad, I guess, to continue to read things like this, because at least people are still thinking, just not objectively, just thinking about things, I guess, like that they can realize that there is more to Kamala Harris than id poll appeals, that she isn't, in fact, a deeply unlikable person. That's kind of gratifying to me, that the American public can still see that kind of thing. I guess my standards are really low these days, but,
Dick Cheney had higher favorability.
Well, I was about to talk about that. I was going to say, like, bear in mind that favorability ratings are very, very heavily influenced by the conditions in the society at that moment. Like, Dick Cheney hadn't seen the high ratings because it was mostly following 9/11.
Well, no, by obscenely higher, I meant 50-50.
Well, the article I read had Dick Cheney well into the positives.
Okay, in like 2002, sure.
And Dick Cheney was
the first year, I guess. In the similar time span, yeah.
Dick Cheney is a combination of like Skeletor and the cast of Valkyrie. So like for him to be that likable has almost nothing to do with his personality. I mean, the guy was a monster.
Is there something wrong with me? I think Dick Cheney's more likable than Kamala Harris.
He's a badass. He shot some guy in the face and everyone just kind of laughed about it.
But he's got that like psycho evil energy. It's funny. He'd make like a great wrestling heel. Like he's entertaining.
Dick Cheney, that guy's so funny.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's very few people I hate more than Dick Cheney. I mean, Harris, I don't actually hate as much as I hate Dick Cheney, though I do think she's less likable.
Yeah,
I hate him more.
Okay, but I'm not saying who's done more damage. I mean, just pure likability. Just their like other weird words, like the favorability thermometer, or how much do people like you.
Harris has that kind of uncanny valley of like, I don't know how she became a politician because of how unlikable she is. Like she's barely human in her affect. She doesn't understand people at all. So she just says wild shit that like doesn't resonate with anyone and then laughs.
But she acts like what she's saying is normal.
Yeah.
And that's the most off-putting thing. Right. It's like a robot or like an AI that's trying to be trained how to speak like humans do, and it's not quite there.
Like if you revealed like, okay, this was our first AI attempt, I'd be like, all right, she's trying.
Yeah, it's a good first start.
AI VP?
I don't know what the fucking deal with her is. I think she just might be like a bad person and it's kind of coming across that way. But really, I mean, when I watch the videos and like her giving like explanations of her political positions and like the most monster shit you ever heard, and she's just like giggling and chortling and like oh you called me out on my life in prison for pot. It's like, what? Like she doesn't even have the slightest shame about any of it. I don't know.
She wears Converse, and that's cool.
Okay, well, speaking of people who are former police and prosecutors making your life worse, I'm really struggling with these transitions.
Yeah.
This from where's this from?
The dumpster.
I can't find. Did I get rid of it? Uh-oh. This from somewhere.
Mhm.
Let me try and find it.
Do you want me to read it while you're searching?
Oh, it's The Hill again.
It's The Hill.
No,
Yeah.
it's actually from a bunch of these. Bunch of every dumbass news website. Federal agencies planning to expand use of facial recognition.
Thanks for telling us, at least.
Yeah, this means that they did it about half a year ago, at least.
Right? It's like it's been declassified.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I'm sure that they plan to use this for great things like finding kidnapped children and stuff like that. It's probably the primary application.
Yeah, exactly. We need to all be. This needs to become a Juggalo podcast, so we can all wear the face paint that obscures their facial recognition technology.
What
Have you heard of that before, Aiden?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. What if like at this point, like they just go full like, cyberpunk dystopia, and they just create like a massive database of everyone's face as analyzed by this program, and it's just like a massive countrywide version of the first thing that Facebook was supposed to be, where every American could just like log on and vote who's hot and who's not.
That's what they do in their NSA offices.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And then they hire on David Cage so they can render out everyone's genitalia as well.
The Republican position becomes that 8s and above don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
And Mitt Romney gets salty.
Yeah.
Yeah, every conservative immediately.
His Uber rating is that he's a 7.5.
Right.
This goes with all the social credit stuff we've been talking about. We just had to put Violent J in charge of the FBI.
I like that this article headline, which seems really straightforward, actually has not one but two different qualifiers rendering it useless. Or three. One is federal agencies, so it doesn't tell us which ones and what their role is and how they're
all of them.
Two, it says planning, meaning this is all smoke and mirrors, who knows, could happen, could not.
And three, it says
expand instead of how much, by what percent, from what to what. This is the most substanceless way of saying this thing.
Like, this article could have been written, Big Brother is going to crack down on you more. Stay tuned.
Or even more neutrally, like NSA by 2022 plans to expand its use of facial recognition 300% and has submitted the budget for it to Congress, which is probably closer to what is actually being done, and they're just not reporting it that way, right? Like they have to present their budgets, so like they know how much it is and what it's for and when they plan to do it. Just none of that's apparently important enough to be in the headline. So it's just meant to be like something vaguely maybe questionable is happening. Oops, what can you do? It's like I'm fucking high when I'm trying to read this. Apparently,
yeah, it's like tantamount to the CIA tweeting out big things coming, winky face.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They got their social media person on fleek, fucking tweeting out sick memes about the facial recognition CCTVs that are coming.
They got a reply from Wendy's,
and then Wendy's has the ICP makeup on. All right. Speaking of shit you'd read while high, this is from People magazine.
Wow, what a heel turn this is.
Belgian woman banned from zoo after 4-year affair with chimpanzee.
Who says romance is dead?
So 4 years.
I couldn't do that.
There's a 3 and 11 month limit in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
Past that, it's a serious relationship, and you can't have that with a chimp. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, this is just funny, and but I do have a lot of questions that I'm going to have to read the article to get answered, I guess. Have you read it at all, Jason?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have also read it because I was looking at that headline the same.
Why have you both read this weird?
Because quiet.
I mean, you wouldn't. You already said you were. Like,
It's
when
not
you hear about shit
it's
like
not a
this,
sexual affair,
no.
don't worry.
No, I
But it
didn't.
may as well have been because the chimp thought it was.
Oh,
Right?
that's
Like,
good.
it wasn't sexual, but the chimp was basically holding out because it only wanted to be with this woman. Kind of sad.
Yes, but the point is the woman was not getting railed by the chimp.
No. I mean, not so far. I mean, I guess that's why they had to break it up. Because the chimp was like, I'm not getting married to another chimp. I'm getting married to this human. It's like, no, it's not going to happen for you, bud.
But here's the long and short of it. Chimp's been here 30 years. Can't get laid, unhappy, doesn't like anyone in his pound. Lady comes in for 4 years. She shows up every week to say hi, and they communicate. And the chimp gets a hard on for the lady. And as Alex says, disrupting the chimp civilization. This is how we get Planet of the Apes, by the way.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like,
I thought for sure it was going to be like a, this woman married a roller coaster kind of thing.
right.
Yeah, I
of
love
course. That. Yeah, of course.
That's so basically the alternate title could be Belgian woman friend zones chimp, I guess.
Zoo authorities friend zone
Yeah.
woman from chimp.
Yeah, I mean, she's looking for a strong, well-groomed man with at least 98% human DNA.
This was me reading this article. I found a related article about a orangutan who picked up sunglasses someone threw in their enclosure and put them on.
I saw that video.
And orangutan reminded me of how I look like.
Well, I guess this is the podcast episode pick now.
Yeah, we just gotta put some political
like
face.
Yeah.
All right. Any more thoughts on the Belgian woman being banned from the zoo?
No,
I don't think she should have been banned from the zoo. It seems cruel. Like, give him like a 6-month separation, let him pair bond with someone else, and let her come back.
That's the other thing. I'm not sure she's banned from the zoo. I think she's banned from seeing that chimp. So it's like a restraining order. So she can go see like the leopards and the penguins and whatever, but not that chimp. Can't be 200 feet close to him or something.
Like, you want to talk about big government? Why can't the monkey love this woman? I don't mean sexually, but like, does he have to have a wife? Like, does he have to have an ape wife? Why can't he just love a human? Like, that's
She's
it.
probably like fucking up the whole vibe in the chimp enclosure, and they have like money riding on it.
This is The Shape of Water, except like big government ends the movie.
I don't know if it's big government. I don't think the Belgian president stepped in.
I'm just saying,
zoo.
Sometimes fucking weird fishmen want to fuck ladies. Like, sometimes apes are like, hey, we're a pair. And
I never saw that movie. Benicio started freaking me out.
Well, I'm not saying that they should allow a sexual relationship between these people, in quotes. But like, for fuck's sake, the ape is not required to have children. Like, is he like endangered? I don't know. I don't understand.
All right. Well, speaking of people, who are upset about what they've produced,
I love this title.
Yeah, here we go. From The Cut. Does anyone want to hear about burned out moms anymore?
Was this like a survey to their readership?
I know one chimp who does.
No, I think it's just like opinion. It's just someone's got like a beef with all the mom articles over the last 2 years about how it's hard to raise kids during a pandemic.
So,
what do y'all think?
I mean,
burned out on burned out moms.
Yeah, exactly. My answer is no, I guess. I would have written an op-ed about it.
Great image, actually.
But
Truth in advertising.
Wow, that's like a very artistic image.
Yeah, it's artsy.
For what's not at all like a subtle or especially.
So, what do you guys think about the burgeoning industry of moms who can't handle the fact that they have to raise their children instead of sending them to school every day? You know, the way humans have done civilization for the last 10,000 years, and now they're like, I can't handle it for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think about this dynamic?
Kids fucking suck. I don't blame them. I mean,
all right, Aiden is clearly in the pro moms bitching camp.
I mean, I don't want to read about it, but if they're doing it in the sanctity of their own homes.
But Aiden, if it exists, you have to be subjected to it.
Yeah,
that's what posting means.
True. True.
You have I have the right to force you to listen to my post. And that's what the right wing believes.
Can I just sorry before I just want to I googled the headline because I wanted to see where it was from, and it looks like it's from a site called thecut.com, but
It's the same one from this.
yeah, the second link is from Fortune from 8 hours ago, and the article there is anyone listening to Burned Out Parents?
So apparently this is a thing. This is a trend. People care.
Apparently this is we've stepped into an active dialogue.
This still feels like machine learning to me. They're like, burned out moms, feeling it? Burned out dads? Burned out parents? Like, they're just running through the things to see like if we can get a human response to an AI question.
This is a quote from one of the moms they interviewed in this article. I think it's telling. The only real difference between last summer and now is that at least back then, people were still asking how I was.
Okay.
Now nobody gives a shit.
Oh, all right.
Shut the fuck up.
Someone clearly, we need one advocate for burned out moms. So I'll step in. To be fair to the burned out moms, yes, throughout most of human history, women would be kind of forced to stay home and raise their children themselves, and that sucked. However, they usually weren't also forced to work a full-time job, which I'm pretty sure a majority of modern mothers are. And also, they generally weren't doing so while also constantly quarantining and being terrified of dying.
I'm not sure it's a majority yet.
There's a lot going on, I guess is what I would say. This is a lot more than a typical child-rearing situation would be in pretty much any other point in history other than like the Black Plague or something.
Kids could have like play dates and stuff and go places. You could at least get some time. Listen, I do have sympathy for quote unquote burned out moms, but I just I do agree that I don't need to read articles about it from either side.
Yes, I have sympathy for all human beings, but burned out moms are not a fucking voting block. Okay, you don't have interests the same way that like the NRA has interests. We all have a collective human interest of making sure kids are nourished and taught properly, and parents are not overworked. But the government's obviously failing in that capacity, so it's not unique or special to moms. Everyone's suffering through this, which is why after a year of hearing about it, people are like, yeah, we get it. We're all suffering. Please stop trying to act like you're special. And this is the endings line of the article, and I think it also is speaking of this, of like this sense of self-importance. The article ends with the line, "We're still here. We're still screaming. But is anybody listening?"
Oh my god, it's framed. This is like reaching psyop levels of.
Yeah, they're acting like they're Joan of Arc, like they're being killed for their values. Like, shut up!
And like
everyone's life sucks.
I understand the hypocrisy of saying all this while I'm recording a podcast where all we do is complain.
And while they're fucking posting on the internet for.
But I'm just doing me, so.
Yeah, I don't really see that much wrong with. I mean, look, there's going to be a handful of people who are extremely outspoken in any community who are just
okay. But imagine if the headline, the title of this episode was, "We're still screaming, we're still here. Why is nobody listening to our niche left-wing ravings of madness?"
I mean, it could be, but the point I'm trying to make is that, yeah, there's a handful of people in any community who are going to kind of be loud and annoying and seem like self-absorbed assholes, but the majority of people are quietly suffering and have like really poor support systems right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that it really sucks right now for so many people, and that includes groups.
Yeah, I just don't think that's the people writing this.
It may or may not be, but as far as it describes material reality, yeah, there's a huge number of parents who feel incredibly overwhelmed right now, and it's a struggle to continue the simplest of premises, which is the continuation of the species in the midst of all the chaos and degradation of society and late capitalism and all this shit. So yeah, like, I think this is describing a real problem and a real phenomenon. And I also like that it's framed in a way as if, like, if there's not a capitalist need for the article about how upset you are, then you don't matter. So it's like, does anyone still find it profitable to hear about your suffering?
Is there a market demand for this?
Right, it's like, that's exactly. Not really the question. The question is, are people suffering, and is there something that can be done about it? Not like
burned out moms are filling a market inefficiency.
Yeah. Are clicks still arriving for burned out moms? What? That's like, it's framed again in a baffling way.
Exactly. But that's the irony I'm most pissed at. It's these people. Yes, being a mom is hard, but trying to be a mom who's like, but I post, and you need to reward me for my posting. It's like, no, we don't. We don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think if anything, it kind of speaks more to how absolutely garbage communication has become, as encouraged by the way that social media influences us, like the things that get responses, that get engagement. Like it really encourages people to be dramatic, to air out every grievance in every part of their lives, which is something that no one was ever supposed to be able to do, in my opinion. And it really kind of encourages some really negative behaviors, like trying to exaggerate victimhood, or trying to make people out to be villains or problems. Like no one, I would never have thought about this before if it weren't for this headline. Like I would never have thought, am I hearing too much from burned out moms? Is that a thing? But yeah, it's the way that things work now. There needs to be a conflict, a problem, something.
It goes right back to what we were saying a few episodes ago, which was like half of all GoFundMe's being for medical bills, and people begging for clout not because they want fame, but because they want like basic needs taken care of by charity.
And the more desperate your appeal, the more likely your success.
Right. The
we've
logical
created-
response in that
Yeah.
space is to be as extreme in your own whinging as possible, just so that you get enough attention that you get your thing paid for. Because otherwise you might suffer
But
the
just so
consequence of it not being paid for.
Just so people don't think we're just bitching, like, we understand that this is a structural problem that can be addressed at the structural level. We have created a society in which we incentivize and reward this kind of behavior. This kind of behavior gets published, gets read. This kind of behavior gets more money, as Alex is alluding to, GoFundMe's. We, whether it's advertising media or, as Aiden is saying, social media, we have created economic structures that reward bad behavior, reward bitching, reward moaning, reward exaggerating, reward straight up lying, instead of creating structures that reward good behavior, reward success, reward solidarity. And these are not like just part of nature. These are not just, no, this is the way it is. Haiti gets hit by earthquake, mom's going post. Like, we can create systems that do better at this. And it's fucked up that we don't even try to fix it. It just continually gets worse and worse.
Well, because it turns out that the market does not have good solutions to having support systems and having financial resources and having civil society and having government institutions.
Yeah, the market doesn't have anyone's best interests in mind except for its own.
The market cannot take care of all of these gaps in what both the government and civil society and social networks are supposed to be able to cover. And I don't mean digital social, real actual friend groups.
And when people were a little more sane, they recognized that the market fulfills some needs and the government's supposed to fulfill the rest. But because we try and now run our government like a shitty business, like, OnlyFans, which has undone its insane decision, now we run our government like a business that's trying to go bankrupt as soon as possible. So now it can't fulfill anything, and the market already leaves massive gaps. So there's just huge portions of civil society that are left to the wayside that no one is fulfilling because either not profitable or the government systems in place to fix it are atrocious.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it's a sign of where we're heading even more as time goes on, both because of all these trends becoming more and more negative and less effort to fix them, but also because the more things get bad, the more people become desperate and start to double down on all these systems. You're not seeing people going like, okay, get me 10,000 relikes so that we can get Medicare for all passed or something, because we've basically given up on that now because we know we've lost the political window to do it. Now it's just everyone's atomized and individualized trying to salvage their thing for the next few years because they don't have any other hopes. They don't have any other project. They're like, this is the way we could solve this otherwise. We've basically abandoned the political dreams necessary to fight for some larger project and are down to just fighting in the fucking ruins.
Over it's just down for each lobster fighting for themselves to climb on other lobsters and kick them down. Or not loud, is that crabs? I can't remember. What's the analogy? What's the example of the... There's some famous thing about crabs when there's a pile of them, like they kick each other down so they can try and escape. I don't know. Mm-hmm. The point is, Alex, you're exactly right. We're totally atomized and individualized. And now we see every success as, I individually succeeded. Or if someone fails, that's their individual fault and problem. There's no way that a system can fix these things. There's no way we can depersonalize this and in some way solve things as a community. That's been totally evaporated from the American psyche.
The more that Twitter and GoFundMe become your source of insulin, the more that insane premise becomes normalized. Like the longer we have the most basic fundamental building blocks of survival privatized and marketized, the longer it'll be since Americans can remember any alternative. Just like we've been gaslit on every other fucking thing that used to be like a centrist position and is now considered Marxism. So,
And this is only accelerating. So like it wasn't in the grand scheme of human life. Wasn't that long ago when fucking Alexis de Tocqueville is writing about little democratic hamlets where people are getting along and the carpenter gets to be mayor for a year and the plumber's mayor the next year and the milkman's mayor. Like, it wasn't that long ago when humans were actually working in concert with each other and solving things at community levels.
Yep.
That has been totally annihilated over this past century. Totally gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat hopeful that it seems like unionizing is becoming a more publicized or at least common thing, as well as workers' strikes across the country. But once again, it took a literal hellscape of a pandemic to even force that into existence. And you still don't hear about them. You hear about moms screaming into the void. You don't hear about people working together in solidarity to overcome systemic problems or to
Collective action issues.
Yeah, exactly. You just hear about
All right,
stuff.
we got time for more of these, or you want to dive into your full stuff?
let's do a few more.
Yeah, I'm up for some more. It's been good.
Okay, let's look at this one. This is from CNN, political opinion section. It's from CNN. You do not have the constitutional right to refuse the COVID-19 vaccine.
Huh.
What do y'all think?
Well, I'm no constitutional lawyer, but good to know, I guess. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, the Constitution is not actually that complicated, but even so, I'm still trying to run through my head whether this would violate any of the like core tenets or sort of penumbras of implied rights. I have to imagine that in areas of national crisis, they've almost all had like a Supreme Court case that creates a niche where you can do this, though. Like, because one of the things you have to remember is that the Constitution is not just the Constitution; it's like this incredibly convoluted series of court cases that have formed precedent surrounding the Constitution, and that's how this would actually be ruled at most courts. So, like, whether you don't even necessarily know whether you have a constitutional right to something until you try to figure out if you do, right? And so, even
but
asserting
what recent event do you think allowed the writing of this article? I think it just happened the other day, like a day or two ago.
Is this the religious exemption to
No. The Pfizer vaccine has now gotten FDA approval.
Mhm.
So what this means is, according to the federal government, the FDA, the Pfizer vaccine is good, doable, usable. So there's no longer the excuse of like, well, it's not even FDA approved. Well, it's not even gone through our government. Once again, it's you have to establish a bunch of things. One, that the government's legitimate. Two, that the tools the government uses are legitimate. Three, that you trust that. But according to the FDA now, the Pfizer vaccine is legit. So there's no argument like, well, even our government doesn't say it's legit. I think that's really what they're speaking to. That there's no longer this.
But what does that affect whether you have a right to refuse it? Like, if the FDA hadn't finished testing it, then you had a constitutional right against it. But now that they do, you don't have a constitutional right against it. Like, is there a constitutional right that says you don't have to take a vaccine until the FDA is fully approved? Like, what does that even? What would that?
No, but as you're saying, it's speaking to this concept of implied rights. That, essentially because it's an emergency and they had to fast track all this shit, people were taking the vaccine even before it was technically FDA approved. Meaning before we fully understand the side effects and the distant effects, people were taking it just out of sheer emergency and safety. But now that it's past all that stuff, there's no longer the excuse of, well, it didn't have legitimate science backing it or, corroborating evidence behind it.
But this is even besides the fact
like a legalistic argument.
I don't even think there is a single part of the country yet that has said you have to take it. Like, is there anywhere in the entire country, is there any state that has said the government is going to force you to take the vaccine? I don't think that's happened.
No, but that's the entire right-wing conspiracy argument, is that they will force you to take this. And the person writing this article is like, yeah, bitch, we're going to force you to take it now that it's FDA approved.
But this is like the liberals playing into the conservatives thing, which is
exactly.
like, fuck you, I'll be the very kind of bizarre, fake, tyrannical premise you think I am.
Right, but that's why it's funny, because it's like, it's the right wing usually argues against straw men, but occasionally the libs are like, I'll be a straw man.
Yeah,
I will be that paper. I will be that thing for you. That pinata for you to beat. I just think it's funny.
I don't understand either part of this argument. From the conservative perspective, what this sounds like to me is you do not have a constitutional right to refuse free money. It's like there's no downside to the vaccine beyond like 1 or 2 days of mild symptoms for some people.
And basic, well-established that a very small percentage of people will react poorly to almost
any vaccine. We're talking about like 0.0001%. We're not talking about even an amount that you would notice in a thousands of person sample.
Of course,
set.
Still tragic when anyone suffers bad problems from vaccine. But the point is, statistically insignificant number of people will be harmed from this.
The right wing is essentially saying you can't force me to get an unambiguous public good. Unambiguous public good. And the I mean, I don't even want to say left, like the center-right liberal response is, fuck you, government can tell you to do whatever we want. Like, what? Why would that be their position? Like, are they suddenly saying, like, we want an incredibly strong state with like, emergency powers to do anything we want? Like, is this them going full, like, Patriot Act? Like, we're going to create a Patriot Act for health?
I think libs are so mad at conservatives, they're willing to be the fascists to force the conservatives into following the health standards they want. Like, there are libs who are clenching their fists like, oh, we'll set up the camps. We'll do it. We'll set up the vaccine camps for your grandpa.
Do you remember in the Obama era when it was like the conservatives were terrified of death panels?
Yeah.
This is like the conservatives are now saying, you can't take away our death panels. They're literally saying we want to die at a staggering rate for no reason, and big government can't stop us from killing ourselves.
It's not no reason. It's what's the movie with Mel Gibson? It's for freedom. Like, die for justice, for truth, for Christ. Because it's not die for no reason. It's die a martyr. It's ISIS. It's just die for the good cause. Die for good. Die for God.
I think it's interesting that if you read the actual headline, all it says is you do not have the constitutional right to refuse the COVID-19 vaccine. Like, there's nothing in there about Democrats committing to, as you say, some kind of fascist requirement or some kind of extreme action. But we all just know, all three of us just know.
We know where it's
we know where this is headed.
We know exactly how smug it's actually going to be. Yeah.
Because that's what they always are, which is like, they have to posture as the smarter people in the room because they're all trying to do West Wing shit and just like punk these chuds and be like, turns out you don't have the right to refuse the vaccine, sir. Like, what? Who cares? These people don't read the Constitution. They don't read the Bible. They just say they
don't read CNN.
They don't know how to read. Like, these people don't do any of this shit. You can't argue with them by saying, like, punked you, bitch. I read your Constitution thoroughly. Like, they don't care.
This is trying to outbench Shapiro them.
What are they doing?
You're not going to outbench Shapiro them.
It's not going to happen. They don't actually care about logic. That's just a fetish. I don't know. Like, this is so dumb. As if any of the Obama era shit ever worked on these smooth brain people. You cannot give a good enough speech and then they go like, I've been swayed by your logic and now I'm a proud vax soldier. No. That's not how it works.
And now from the opposite perspective. From Politico, California can't stop talking about Florida.
Oh, God.
And I read it with this snarky, Mothers of Real Housewives voice, because that's all this is. Well, you got to get your house in order. This is the level where top level politicians, this is how they speak to each other. Like catty reality TV level of, you can't get our name out of your mouth. Well, you can't get the vaccine out of your shoulder. Like, this is the childish, petulant way in which people who write laws and pass rules speak with each other and communicate with each other in article form.
I don't like people playing on my phone. This is like,
put some respect on my name.
California's trying to keep it real by calling it a fire. Like, state that's actively on fire in like 500 different places calls out state that's metaphorically on fire with the worst COVID. free.
We see the time to the gentleman from California, Mr. Birdman. Like this is where we're at.
Once again, anthropomorphizing states as well. Like they're literal people.
Yeah.
There's no agent in this. The territory of these states, like the Earth spirit has kind of emerged like Avatar of Gaia and started talking shit to each other.
The opening line of this article: Florida is living rent free in California's head. Because look, this article is all about the Gavin Newsom recall and comparing Newsom and Ron DeSantis, who are both total idiots and failed losers, but for totally different reasons. And I just think this is for like, in what sense are we United States? We're not. We are divided states that exist to shit on each other. And if this article isn't proof of that, I don't know what to tell you. We need to get rid of united. We are the states of America. We are the states that make up this country. We are in no way united other than that we have roads that go across each other and we accept each other's money.
You know, I would almost accept this article if only it was encouraging more people to live rent-free in California.
Hey.
Got him. You've turned it into a socialist rent destruction article.
Got
but I
him.
guarantee you it's not that.
No, it's
Yeah, record scratch tone.
yeah.
Oh, I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, I mean,
this is so stupid.
So what do you think about states' rights and such? This is the medium for that.
Yeah, do you think there should be a war over states' rights? It's pretty like it's almost entirely a liberal thing at this point, but it's really sickening how anytime something structurally bad happens in a conservative state, or at least what people have decided is a conservative state, because normally those states do at least have bastions of democratic or even leftist populations like Dallas and.
Let's put it plainly: every single state in America that has cities
exactly.
has many people who are not right wing, but just because of many things you all know about gerrymandering, redistricting, all sorts of crazy bullshit that happens on local level politics, states become blue and red for a bunch of bullshit reasons.
Not to mention that when we had a party that actually represented working class people, huge amounts of the countryside voted with it.
Yeah.
It's just we've lost it because the modern quote unquote left options don't give a flying fuck about any of those people, so they all vote Republican over culture issues.
Yep.
Like those people are not all lost. They're just lost because we don't even bother with them.
No, it's not that they're lost. It's that the politics considers them lost. They still exist. They're out there looking for candidates and politicians that actually care about them. But the people on top don't care.
the fact that we're at the point where it's just like we've written every article that kind of vaguely made sense, and now we're just like, hey y'all, you see the video on World Star where fucking Nebraska punked Idaho? I'm like, I don't know what that means, and I don't care.
But you see, this is not even like professional sport beefs. This is like college sport beefs, where it's like the Idaho, spelunkers or corn cobblers, or like this is where like states are fighting each other over the pettiest of petty bullshit. It's not even like we have a different worldview, a different vision for how politics is done. It's just like, you're from that state and I'm from this state. Suck my dick. It's really that level.
Oh yeah, California says we have acres and acres and hundreds of homes burning in wildfires. Well, Texas, your people froze to death because your energy infrastructure was too poor. Isn't that
ironic? That Florida's like, we're all drowning with COVID.
Owned you with all the people that you failed and have died tragically.
Who's better at failing their constituents? Oh man. All right. Well, that's all that I've got.
I think that's the last. Yeah, that's the last one I can take anyway. My God. I think to kind of take us out this time, we're going to cover a few things that we've mentioned before and some we haven't. Starting with a brief callback to the plague riders of Nurgle, who we mentioned the last time a few episodes ago, were bikers riding across America to spread COVID, or at the very least with spreading COVID without caring that they're spreading it. I'm not really clear on it. So an article popped up. An article popped up in our feed. South Dakota cases quintuple after Sturgis motorcycle rally. As this motorcycle rally, which had brought something like 500,000 to 1 million people, almost none of them wearing masks and almost none of them vaccinated, of course, took South Dakota from one of the lowest rates in the country to one of the highest rates in the country in 2 weeks. In Meade County, which is the county where this event took place, they saw a 1,500% increase in COVID cases in the last 2 weeks. But the article makes sure to point out we're not yet sure it's because of this event.
Think of all these stats.
So good.
And then, but we can't say for sure it was because of the rally. You know, could have been because
really incredible.
You had 2 friends over for a barbecue. Could have been that.
They won.
I'm glad to see that proselytizing is still a successful endeavor, even when it mainly concerns spreading the plague.
It's we sometimes like to joke about like people doing bad things for obviously evil reasons when it's usually just ignorance or stupidity. But like, it feels like this was intentional. Like this felt like malice and forethought to me.
I mean, that's the way it was framed in the last article we read. The prologue, so to speak, is that this was framed with some intentionality, which is, that's not a good feeling. Especially, I think that's why it's distinct from like the conversation we just left off of, because it seems like this was an act of rebellion, and the act was spreading COVID, and it has been successful. So I guess that goes to your point, Chase, that maybe collective action is still alive and well. Yeah,
only for evil. Alex is not joking. Like, these people are legitimately Chaos Space Marines. They exist to spread bile for the bile gods,
right?
And most of them have either it for the 8th time, or they're just permanently suffering through long COVID, and that's just their life now, and they're fine with it. Like, they're just a rotting pile of flesh that they're like a zombie horde. They drop to an area, kill all the weak, and then just keep moving. And you know what? I'm here for it. If that's like the new career path, biker super spreader, cool. We're approaching Mad Max times, and it's cooler than what things were before.
Left 4 Dead Boomer is now a career option.
Except the Boomer's now on like a Harley.
I guess Boomer maybe has 2 meanings.
And his belch is invisible, and you're like, I don't know if he even got me.
Needs to be patched.
Oh man, needs to be modded in. And not to mention the other insane things about biker rallies, which is the ridiculous amounts of pollution they create. I mean, motorcycles are some of the most like inefficient, like dinosaur guzzling engines that still exist. There's not like a lot of pressure like there is on the car industry to become more ecologically friendly, switch to electric, become more fuel efficient, reduce emissions. Like, motorcycles are just proud and out about like, here's my dong, like here's my truck nuts, here's my like 5 miles to gallon, and here's my horrible diesel I'm shooting into space. So motorcycle rallies are especially disgusting in general. So this is just like they're just tripling down on the grossness, and it's amazing.
Yeah, not to say that
I love it.
Every Harley I've ever heard seems to come with whatever the opposite of a muffler is.
Yeah. Well, they just said remove
true.
mufflers. Yeah. Unmuffler, demuffler.
But every now and then we like to see that. You love to see it. Basically, you love to see when people with a dedicated political cause make a change in the world.
But see, this reminds me of like early Christianity, where it's like, no, we are a death cult. We will all be committing suicide in like 6 months. Like, this is what happens when it's not like, it's not like the left wing was like, well, we really should take COVID seriously. Like, this is not a political issue. This is just basic life and death. But when basic things become politicized, you have people who are then unironically advocating for evil. And they like acknowledge it. They're like, yeah, we got COVID, I'm proud of it. Like, what? How is this an identity that you've built yourself around? Like, I'm the COVID biker. Like, there's gonna be COVID biker gangs that are gonna be beefing with each other over like how much COVID they spread. Because this has now become a badge of honor. Like the Proud Boys' whole thing is we're assholes, and that's like become their badge of honor. This is like a bad. This is like you get your Boy Scout badge.
Yeah.
For coughing on food, or like coughing in the grocery store. Like this is what they now live for. This has supplanted their previous political motivations. This has supplanted their previous values, because their previous values got them nowhere. Their previous values barely got Trump across the finish line, which just unleashed the Pandora's box of like just love evil. And they now just love this. This has become their pastime. They're creating new traditions as we speak.
Yeah, their new gang initiation is to attend and or generate at least one super spreader event.
Yeah, kill at least 3 grandparents.
Yeah, radical.
So we hope that this gave you all some good closure on our previous story. Yeah,
On
COVID's
COVID.
over with this, one way or another.
No, I've not. But I've looked at the illustration of him, and it's funny. It's cute. All right.
Does he look cute in that little pencil sketch?
What, like, 20-year-old artist who's paid like 6 cents a day was forced to make this artistic
Apparently
cute
Dan
rendering of Henry
Williams, it says,
Kissinger?
like bottom right corner. It looks like it
Poor
looks like he does
soul.
it for every article of this type.
Oh my! I just that little blurb paragraph in the beginning.
Yep.
So stupid.
Don't worry, it doesn't get any better. In fact, it arguably gets worse.
Yeah, I'm done reading it. We're good. We're good. I'll keep this. And
The rest of the article is basically him saying that Afghanistan could never have culture and never will have civilization, and him like barely holding himself back from saying, "Our mistake was not nuking the entire country," which is
yeah, I know. Our mistake
which is
was thinking
entirely
they were
out of character
humans.
for Kissinger.
It's not like this is the MO he's been using for 50 years with Vietnam. Like, I'm just trying to think of fantasy analogies. Like, did the elves ever go to the orcs and be like, "Come on, listen to Celebrimbor, listen to Elrond. Like, being civilized and cultured is cool." And the orcs were like, "Fuck off!" And like, see, we tried diplomacy first. Now we got to purge them. It's the way it is. They're just intrinsically bad at civilization. Oh wait, civilization was birthed in the Middle East.
No,
China?
not real civilization. Yeah, the cradle of life.
I swear to God, like, do these people think civilization was invented by the Greeks?
They do.
God, so fucking dumb. We're keeping it in. We're doing it live. We've been riffing. I read it. I read enough.
You've seen too much.
I know. I've seen things. Peered into the void. Well, let's talk about Kissinger some.
So, in another callback to previous episodes, specifically the last couple, we also have an article on Afghanistan. But not the good kind like you like. This is an article by Henry Kissinger, who decided at 98 years old, and with the track record that he has...
I'm sorry, he's that old?
He's 98 years old, and he decided this was the time to solve the Afghanistan problem. With an article that's about a 4-minute read. Why don't we talk about it?
This motherfucker is 98?
Mm-hmm.
He looks great.
I mean,
he looks like James Lipton, who like kicked ass into his 90s before he died.
Yeah.
Holy shit! How many child souls has he consumed? How many souls does he give when you beat him in the boss battle in Dark Souls?
Yeah, I think it's just
my god,
dried out husk at this point. But This is a really incredibly boring article. Like, I don't even think we need to read it because it's exactly what you would expect it would be coming from Henry Kissinger. The article itself is called Henry Kissinger on Why America Failed in Afghanistan. And I'll read you the subhead at least. It was not possible to turn the country into a modern democracy, but creative diplomacy and force might have overcome terrorism, says the American statesman. What are your thoughts, folks?
I think like he seems the perfect person to ask about this, as he is, very relevant personal experience. Or since as the news has informed me, this is a modern day Saigon, and if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, he had something to do with Vietnam, right, guys? Am I remembering that correctly? Wait, no, this sweet old man. I'm looking at a pen and ink portrait of couldn't have had anything to do with that disastrous war. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the gall to speak on the issue, would he? Yeah. Obviously, that's sarcasm. Yeah. The piece itself is horrible. It's boring and horrible, which is if it's going to be horrible, at least it could be entertaining. But no, Henry Kissinger has.
He doesn't have an entertaining
he has
bone in his body.
Perfect equilibrium. Equilibrium in this case meaning something that makes my brain want to explode out of my skull.
I'm now just posting pictures of him.
He's so friendly
that I find funny.
Yeah, it's full of what you'd expect. It's like it is racist against the Afghani people, as even just the subheading that Alex read suggests. Basically talks about how there's never any hope for them to achieve democracy because they've never really been capable of having their own modern civilization. This is not a quote, but this is a pretty, I think, reasonable paraphrasing, that they're a backwards people who have always been tribalist, and that the only times they've ever been able to come together is to murder white people, which is basically what he says. At one point he made.
Does he point to the Crusades? Please tell me.
No, at least he's smart enough to know that the Crusades never made it that far, but it would have been.
But what I mean is just the Arab hordes that he's referring to.
Yeah, I think as far back as he goes is the 18th century. But he makes like a point to talk about how, let's see, both the calamitous British retreat from Kabul in 1842, in which only a single European escaped death or captivity. So, making sure that you know that these evil brown people kill white people en masse mercilessly. But that whole section is to critique the Afghani army and the Afghani people for not fighting against the Taliban well enough, because clearly they're able to fight against people in a united front and with vehement support, because they've done it before back in the 19th and 18th centuries.
Man, we don't even need Francis Fukuyama anymore. Like, according to Kissinger, just civilizations are literally different, fundamentally different, and antagonistic toward each other.
Well, remember, Afghanistan may never have been a modern state because statehood presupposes a sense of common obligation and centralization of authority. However, Afghan soil is rich in many elements. He even does a callback to the $1 trillion of resources the world desperately needs. I cannot believe he did a callback to that. Like, Kissinger of all people is not smart enough apparently to know not to say that.
Oh my God, Alex! I found the problem with our podcast. Kissinger reads these articles.
Yeah,
the articles that we read. Oh God! Oh no!
I could not believe that he actually included a line referencing that. But yeah, it basically, the entire thing is just him arguing that we somehow did everything wrong in Afghanistan by having our troops in there when we did and having our troops out of there when we did, even though we've been occupying it for 20 years and only just now have pulled out. And then he concludes by saying, you should have used troops better and not used troops better. Actually, I have no idea.
Well, see, the sense I get is that this article just seems to me like it's like a mad ex who's like, well, you didn't listen to me. You didn't do it the way I said to do it. So this is your own fault because you took other foreign policy experts'
Right.
advice instead of mine. It's like, Henry, you've been sitting in an office for fucking 50 years, like, just bullshitting. None of your advice has ever been good. Every conflict you've ever had any policy prescriptions in has always gone cock up. So you can't, after the fact, say, well, if you had done XYZ, and be like, oh, you're right, Henry. Oh, my God. Like, everything you've ever done has been a colossal failure that has cost people lives. Why would we believe you now? Die!
All right. Well,
Just die already.
You're almost over that finish line.
And I just want to mention, I posted 2 pictures while you guys were talking. The top one's real, apparently. Apparently, Henry Kissinger and Dianne Feinstein, who I'm pretty sure has been confirmed has, like, dementia, like, full-on Alzheimer's, like, doesn't know who anything is. Feinstein and him have been nominated as the 2021 recipients for the George H.W. Bush Award for achievements in U.S.-China relations. This shit just writes itself.
That reeks.
This hobgoblin and this brain-dead woman apparently have been so great for connecting us with China. You know, the country that we so viciously want to start a war over because we think they started a global pandemic. And who better to name this award than George H.W. Bush, rapist-in-chief himself? Oh my God.
I mean,
Allegedly.
how many Southeast Asians do you have to orchestrate the genocide of before you can't get an award in U.S.-Asian relations in any sense? Or are they saying that China loved that we did that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what are they implying?
The Shanghai
it's not a
Shek
ceiling.
Award.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
not a
come
ceiling.
on.
It's a floor. You have to
Yeah.
have killed at least as many.
And then the other picture I posted is him politely and delicately hugging Hillary Clinton at some, monsters who run the World Summit.
Yeah.
That picture is a challenge in hatred for me. Like, this is, they have, like, vignettes or portraits of
It's like a
justice or
laugh
whatever.
if you laugh, you lose.
Yeah.
Where it's like you hate, you
Yeah,
lose.
it's just sick. It's sickening for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons why I think it's most relevant in its being sickening is, who is he trying to kid that his philosophy hasn't absolutely been the foreign policy of the United States this entire time? Like, Hillary Clinton and her husband Bill, when he was president, and Obama and the Bushes, all of these motherfuckers were using Kissinger as foreign policy. Every single one of them was doing insane American imperialist realpolitik exactly like he wanted. So why the fuck is he saying we didn't do it right? They did what he wanted.
Yeah.
He would have done it better because he's just smarter at the wheels. Like, what the fuck is he saying?
We got to read this at some point.
He would have gone farther. Like, we have all these nuclear weapons in our arsenal. He would have used one on the country of Afghanistan. Is what I kind of legitimately feel like he's holding himself back from. Like, that is the undercurrent, is that because, like, he keeps bringing up the pairing of political goals and military goals, but in every context it's that we were misguided to focus too much on political goals and not go far enough in military goals. And, like, considering how far we went and how, as we talked about in, like, the drone strike episode, how comfortable we are with extrajudicial killings, often of innocent people, what's the next step? It's like, expand that tenfold, 100-fold. Yeah. And obviously we all understand the main point of this is just for him to feel good about himself and feel superior. But that doesn't make it any less absurd in the minutia either.
Do you think he's just upset that we didn't kill as many Afghanis as he killed Vietnamese and, like, Laotians and shit? Like, does he feel like we didn't take it seriously because the death toll wasn't as high?
I think that's probably...
I don't know, because that's almost what it felt like reading the article.
Yeah, I think that probably is a metric that he considers without any kind of mockery or sarcasm. I think, yeah.
I don't even think he does consider it. I don't think he thinks of these events as having
It's just
human
outcomes.
cost. I don't think he thinks those. I don't think he considers, like, human lives as part of the equation. For him, it's like moving chess piece. It's like it's not real. He's in an office looking at a computer screen. Like, It's never
Yeah,
been
it's an
real for him.
intellectual challenge.
Correct. It's a totally intellectual pursuit. It's just what I was saying. It's like chess grandmasters at chess, moving chessboards and having pawns die to kill other pawns. Like it's just, I don't know. It's like fiction. It's like Tetris. But he can't intellectualize how it works at the ground level. The actual real life cost. He's never been able to because he's always been in an ivory tower writing memos. It's never clicked for him. He's either been in the ivory tower writing memos, or he's been at a gala or some summit meeting world leaders, shaking their hands. This has never been real for him.
I like that even after he's 98. Like, this is the time when most people are writing like I'm sorry I fucked everything up.
Right, this is when Rockefeller's donating like billions to undo the damage he's done.
Time to do like 11th hour Christian style shit. I mean, I understand his Jewish, but it's the idea. Like, time to do 11th hour shit to try to save what is left of my tattered soul and morality, and try to make any kind of amends for the horrific evil that I participated in my life. No, he's writing articles with quotes like, "We must recognize that no dramatic strategic move is available in the immediate future to offset the self-inflicted setback of withdrawing from Afghanistan."
Once again, he's just like, we should have done C6. Like, if this is just, I would have done a different chess move.
The fact that we're not maintaining an endless war of aggression in a foreign country, which has basically no relationship to terrorism anyway at this point, except that within themselves, will never recover.
Yeah, well,
we could never recover from that.
One of the consequences that he outlines 3, but one of them is the confusion among observers it will sow.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just like, I think it goes to what you were saying, Jason, as the consequences are just meaningless. They're just words. It's like this abstract idea of power and influence, and I guess confusion among observers. It really is parrot.
I have stumbled onto a deep, dark side of the internet. I have stumbled onto like Kissinger fanfic.
That last pick.
No. Come on.
No.
Apparently, like the comic book, everyone loves Kissinger because he's showing up in comic books. Because so many comic books take place in like the post World War II like era. This insane, like, this man's an American hero. I don't know. I almost feel like we need to read Christopher Hitchens' The Trial of Henry Kissinger, or like do some kind of deep dive on just this man himself. Because, I mean, imagine if like Morgoth was getting like puff pieces written about it. Like this is.
Yeah, we're entering like
one of the worst humans
Ben
in
Garrison
human history.
levels.
He's in like the top 10 FBI most wanted of like worst humans to ever exist. He's up there with like King Leopold and Hitler.
This is a subtle point, but do you notice that in the image of him as Superman emerging, he's coming out of what is basically either like Mecca or the Sinai Peninsula? Yeah. Like as if his efforts in the fucking Israeli conflict were any more ethical than anything else he was involved in. I don't know. That just struck me as particularly absurd. As if he's viewed as a hero by fucking anyone there who isn't Israel. Yeah, so for those who aren't sure what we're talking about, if you just look up anything that Henry Kissinger's ever done, it's pretty much all been monstrous. There's very little that was not horrifically unethical. I mean, his whole premise, the whole thing you always wanted to push was this idea of realpolitik, which is essentially everyone is brutally self-interested, and if you're not brutally self-interested, you're a dupe idiot. So
he was trying to play out Game of Thrones,
yeah,
but like for the real
if Littlefinger lived to 99 or whatever, and was sort of better educated. That's all.
If Game of Thrones was written by Ayn Rand instead of George R.R. Martin, where Littlefinger is the fucking protagonist, that's Henry Kissinger's legacy.
Yeah, and he's not apparently not even apologetic about it. Doesn't care at all. He wished he could have done more evil.
No, he just says bad game. Mad cause bad at the end. Yeah. That's how he ends the match. God, what a fucking scumbag!
But it is very funny to me that after getting everything he ever wanted, and basically the way he did foreign policy having been the norm even up till now, it's still not good enough for him. Somehow never good enough for him. This is worse than the people who think like if only Stalin had done X, Y, or Z, then the Soviet Union wouldn't have had totalitarian aspects or oppression. It's like the amount to which they apologize for international war crimes in like American empire, as if like, well, it would have been perfectly good if only we tweaked these tiny little knobs here and there, is so laughable. But, you know, he's got to believe it. Otherwise, his life was a sham.
Mhm.
Right. You can't not believe it. Otherwise, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And to briefly, to touch on what you mentioned earlier, in 2019, Kissinger wrote about the increasing tendency to give control of nuclear weapons to computers operating with artificial intelligence, saying it would be good.
The computers would end us so fast, and they'd be right.
He's saying it would create a strategic advantage for the country that had an AI doing it.
Stratego,
That's
did
real.
he write Terminator?
He actually said that.
I
Holy
doubt this man can
Christ.
even operate a modern computer.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like calling in his nephew and grandson to help with email.
Yeah, and like he's like, all right, how do I send an
my
email? All right, how do I launch a nuke from this thing? They can do that these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wild. That is absolutely great.
I mean, there's nothing this man can't do to keep impressing us with his insanity.
That's why we love him.
He's the gift that keeps on giving, really.
America's grandpa.
Well, I think, considering how long that went and the technical issues that have been plaguing this episode, we're going to call it this time, folks.
Discuss Paw Patrol.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss some insane bullshit that we had planned that we didn't have time for later.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look forward to knowing next week that we'll have a much more ridiculous and even more inane article to discuss than anything Henry Kissinger ever wiped his ass with and emailed out. On that note, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoy what we do here at the Non-Essential Workers Podcast and you want to support us, please check us out at patreon.com/non-essential-workers-podcast or by clicking the link below.
For $5, you get access to the Patreon feed and twice as many total episodes.
How many more?
I'll say it one more time for the back. Twice. Anyways, thanks and see you next time.